My name is Melissa, and I am one of two event sales directors at Las Colinas Country Club and at Irving. I just kind of told you a little bit about the venue so you kind of understand. But we're a full service venue in terms of we provide food, beverage, staffing, tables, chairs, like as many floating candles as you possibly like, wherever you'd like them. Linens, we have, yeah, pretty much everything aside from like the extras, right? We're not gonna provide the floral or, you can work with an outside, like bakery for cakes, things like that. But I'm a photographer, we don't have set like vendors you have to work with, but we do have a preferred vendor list. We do not just weddings, we do corporate business, all kinds of things. So I kind of think of all these things a little differently for weddings, but they're kind of across the board for all of your events, so. Perfect. So discovering how to narrow down your venue options. Number one is building out your budget, right? So, and that doesn't just mean I get inquiries all the time of like, well, my venue budget is this amount, but they're not thinking of like food and beverage, because we're a full service venue. There are venues that are not. So just really knowing more of like your itemized budget. That way, when you find out what each venue offers, you can see if that can take away from another line item in your budget. So if you have a line item for staffing and we cover that, well, you can just know to combine that in with your venue budget, things like that. The other thing is what is most important to you. There is no point in starting to look for your venue. If you know the exact date you want to get married on and you need a place for 300 people, and you don't know what you're spending, until you know those things, there's no point to start looking because you're going to get disappointed. Sadly, you're going to find a beautiful venue that doesn't have your date available, or they can only fit 200 people, which if that's not the most important thing to you, then maybe you can cut your guest list a little. But if you decide that, okay, I have these 300 people that have to be at my wedding, filter your wedding searches to make sure that you're looking for 300 plus venues, because we get a lot of people who will come in and they're like, okay, can we make it work if we do it like this? And I'm like, I promise I know the space, like, unless you're okay with nobody sitting down, like, we can't make it work. And it's just a disappointing feeling when you like feel like you found the venue and you've never gone venue hunting before. The room looks big enough. I'm like, I promise it's not, and it's not the experience you're gonna want if we're putting people in here like sardines. So really knowing the most important thing to you, like I said, date, capacity, location, the vibes. There's tons of different things that could be important to you. Maybe you already know what wedding planner you want to work with, and knowing their availability first before you ever look for a venue. Like, you don't care what day you get married, maybe, but that planner has limited availability. I personally feel that unless you have somebody you're already dead set on working with, that you find your venue first, because otherwise you're reaching out to planners and photographers and they're asking for a date and you have no idea what date because you haven't locked down a venue. You don't even, maybe it's outside of their range to where they would be willing to drive. Maybe it's a date they don't have available. So once you know your budget and once you know what's most important to you and you have an idea of your vision, because I will say vision's important, but you could see a venue that's completely something different than you would have ever imagined and be like, this is the one. But if we can't fit the amount of people that you need to fit, or we don't have your date available, or we're not within your budget, you don't want to get hurt. Seeing this beautiful place, imagining your whole wedding there to find out it's not good. So those are the things that I would say first before you start looking. Then you can filter your searches. I definitely suggest obviously just Googling, but places like, or like sites like Wedding Wire and The Knot, and well, those are my two favorite personally, but there's also Zola and Detective. It is nice because it's easier to like take it in, to see like a bunch of different venues that you can compare together. But I also wouldn't necessarily trust like all of the details and pricing you see there. And that's coming from somebody who works at a venue. The options that those sites provide for me as the vendor to plug in are really limited. So it might ask for my pricing on a Sunday in July, like for the food and beverage minimum, isn't going to be the same as the Saturday in December. My food and beverage pricing doesn't change. And a lot of like caterers or vendors, that might be the case. Like my steak costs what my steak costs every day of the week, of the year. But the amount that the food and beverage minimum that you're going to have to meet is going to be higher on those prime dates. So it's good to, even if it seems like it's like close to your price range or you're just kind of not understanding, to just go ahead and reach out. It never hurts to reach out and get a proposal. I always suggest get the pricing before you go, because again, maybe I'm only putting my facility fee because it's confusing the way they're asking me. Our facility fees are low. They're about $1,500 to $2,500. So if you're thinking, if you're comparing that to like a venue that their facility fees $8,000, but all you're getting is the venue, it's different. But then you might find at your $8,000 venue, you might be getting catering that's $25 a person versus my food that's going to be like $60 or $70 a person. Another thing to keep in mind when you're looking for a venue that's really important is how easy do you want this to be on yourself? It's something to keep in mind. I wouldn't say it's going to be the most important, but at a full service venue, like our venue, you don't have to look for a caterer. And even there's a lot of venues that are not full service, but they already have like, these are the vendors you're going to work with. So it's just as easy. But if it's a venue where you have a lot of like freedom to pick your vendors, that can seem appealing up front. And it might be if you know how to research properly and you're good at those things. I'm not good at those things. And I would be so overwhelmed. I would be like, wait, there's all these caterers in DFW. Now I have to figure out what kind of food do I want? Are they available too? So it really just depends, like, do you have a planner from the beginning? Things like that. But I really think like looking at full service versus not is helpful to kind of see how much is that venue going to take off your plate. But yes, I do suggest booking your venue early on, but it is important to know these things before you even click search. Don't want to be heartbroken. All right, some key questions to ask, and I'm sure I will come up with more as we are talking through this. But some of the important, really important things to know are how many hours do you have the rental? So at our venue specifically, we're not just a wedding venue, so we're a little bit more flexible. We typically allow like 5 hours for the actual event time. But if you were coming to book a wedding ceremony and reception with me on a Saturday, I'm just going to block the full day for you so you can come in and decorate. But there are other venues that are popping weddings out right and left, and it's going to be a little more strict. So you just want to make sure you know those things so you can plan the rest of your day or weekend accordingly, and to make sure that your vendors, you're booking your other vendors for the right time frames based on what your venue allows. Another thing is with the full service versus not, is it's not up here is what is included is, are you gonna have to stay after and clean up? Which that's totally fine if you have to, but it's good to know. So at our venue, you take what you want, we break down and everything, the rest, but it's nice to know. Other things are what's included. Again, do they provide staff? Do they provide the catering, the bar service? All of those things, it's just good to know. So you know, like I said, when you're looking at your budget, you know what to combine into like, okay, this venue offers all these things, so we should probably look at this block of things together versus just what you had allotted for like the brick and mortar, because some venues are more than that and some venues are not. And again, I don't think there's necessarily a better or a worse. It just depends on like how easy you want it to be on yourself and like where those prices align when you start adding everything together. Another good question is security required. We do not allow security. I mean, we allow security. We do not require security and we don't provide it, but you're welcome to book it on your own. Some venues do require it. So it's good to know, because even when I first started doing this, I worked in hospitality a while. And the first time I got that question, I was like, what? Oh, we don't. And then it hit me, oh, a lot of venues are serving alcohol, you have to have security. So if I had been building out my wedding budget before I worked in the industry, that's not even something I would have put on my budget if I didn't have it. I wouldn't have even thought of that. So I think that's a good question. Also, if there's any extra fees that aren't outlined in your proposal, again, it is good to see a proposal, whether it's before you go to the venue or while you're there, and really take the time to sit down with the seller at the venue and talk through like, okay, just to make sure you understand what's included. Is there a tip required? Most proposals will have everything, like the total at the end of the day, but it might not be on the menu. So for example, you're going to see a menu price of $70. Gotta remember there's tax and service charge on that, and every venue service charge is going to be different, and every vendor's service charge or service fees are going to be different. So I would say that's not a venue specific thing. It's every vendor you're going to work with, because what you're seeing on the menu, once you add in the tax and service charge, you know what I mean, it might end up being higher. Another good question to ask is their vendor policy. Like I said, some venues require you to only work with their list of vendors, and that could extend far beyond just food and beverage. They could say these are the only photographers, only planners, only whatever, but maybe you have somebody, maybe you're trying to save money on photography and your good friend is a photographer, and that's okay to you because the pictures aren't most important, or maybe, you know what I mean? Things like that. So it's just good to know what they allow, because if this venue is perfect and you book it and then you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I couldn't book this caterer, and that's the caterer that was in our price point that we liked. It's just good to know exactly what their vendor policy. Another really important question is due dates. When is everything due to you? When are the details due? Do you include a tasting if it's a caterer or if it's the venue that has the catering? For example, our due dates are your menu is due 14 days prior. Most of the time for a wedding, you know, you're eating more than 14 days prior. And then your final head counts and all final details for us are just due 10 days prior, which is nice because you have a little more flexibility with those out of town guests who maybe thought they were going to be able to come and then can't, or didn't think they were going to be able to come and now they can. But again, not really a problem on when it is. It's just knowing, so you know how to pace yourself as you're planning the event and sending out your invitations, making sure you know what all needs to be collected is another question that I don't have on here. If you're doing a plated meal, and you're offering 3 different protein options, knowing that you need to offer those ahead of time and turn those in with your final head count, something that wouldn't think of if I didn't work in this industry. I have people all the time like, we can't just order at the time of, and I'm like, it's about 200 people. That would take a really long time. And knowing that like you need to provide place cards. So just really asking, like, if I do a plated meal, what do you need from me? How do I do it? There is no dumb question ever. Like, this is for most people, their first time planning a wedding. And we work with weddings all the time. So there could be things like, don't ever be embarrassed to ask just because we know the answer. It's only because we work in it. And there's still going to be questions that we don't know the answer to, and we will figure it out for you. Those to me are some of the most important, aside from all the obvious like capacity, date availability. Don't ever be afraid, honestly, to ask for like, if you have a vision in mind with the way you want the room set up, just because I can accommodate 200 people, doesn't mean I can accommodate them at a zigzag table down with a 24 by 24 dance floor, right? So I think if you have a certain vision in mind, it never hurts to share those things. That way we can really tell you what we can accommodate and what we can't. And so. Okay, and discover how to narrow down your. And then how to align your venue with your wedding vision. I took it, sorry. Keeping your priorities, or sorry, knowing your priorities and your non-negotiables. We kind of already covered it, but to me, this is like the all-encompassing factor right here. Another important thing is, to me, is make sure that your venue either naturally matches the vibe that you're wanting for your special day, or if it's a blank slate and you have to do a lot of work to bring your vision to life or to make it look like a venue or whatever that may be, that you're taking those expenses into consideration. Because just because the venue checks the box in terms of your budget, if you have to bring in your own linen, if you have to rent nicer chairs because their chairs look like they're from the 90s, if let's say it just isn't like a very industrial like blank slate, but you have this, you want walls of flowers, and you just have to take all those things into consideration, because I would hate for you to book the venue that you just do because of the price point and not realizing that your budget in other areas might go up because of what they do or don't include or how it looks.